Picture this for a second. Imagine you inherit 47 acres of Montana wilderness from your granddad, complete with mineral rights and a private road that's been in your family for a century. That's the kind of story where you expect to find peace, right? Now, hold on to that image, because mine turned into a waking nightmare the second I found out the local HOA president had built 36 luxury homes smack dab in the middle of what was supposed to be my little slice of heaven. She was out here collecting $400 a month from every homeowner, running their SUVs up and down my road, like I was just some invisible ghost hanging around on the edge of her empire. The first time I confronted Brenda, the kind of woman who measures grass with a ruler and drives a white Escalade with HOA Queen plates, she looked at my work boots indeed like I'd shown up to a masquerade ball wearing overalls. She actually laughed, tapped her acrylic nails on the doorframe, and told me to get a real lawyer. You know what I mean? That's the kind of moment that makes your blood boil, but also makes you realize you're in for a hell of a ride. So let me back up a sec. Before all this, I was just Jake, a 34-year-old electrician barely scraping by in Billings. My grandpa, Henry, left me the land he'd worked since 1923, said it was worth more than gold if you're smart enough to hold on to it. I planned to build a cabin, start an electrical contracting business, maybe finally catch a break. That land was my future. The road was private, maintained by Grandpa himself. Not a shortcut, not an easement, just a gravel path connecting our land to the world. But 3 months after the funeral, I go out there and find this Whitefish Meadows subdivision, identical beige houses, stone entrance, even fancy street signs. And every one of those 36 homes, using my road, my land, my family's history. Brenda answers the door in a bathrobe that probably cost more than my truck. When I show her the deed, she hits me with the old tax sale line, claims my grandpa didn't pay his property taxes, so the land was auctioned off, and she bought it for a song. But see, Grandpa was the most meticulous man I knew. Every payment, every receipt, every tax record, he had them organized and locked away. I took those records to Cassandra, a property attorney who looked like she ate HOA presidents for breakfast. Within 2 days, she'd found the truth. There was never a tax sale. Brenda had convinced her brother-in-law, the county clerk, to forge the whole thing. Criminal fraud, plain and simple. Armed with the truth, I went back to Brenda. She tore up the legal letter and, just to prove her point, slapped a giant iron gate at the end of my road, complete with security guards and keypads. Here's the part where her arrogance became my secret weapon. See, by gating the road, she was admitting it was private. You can't gate public property. Cassandra nearly choked laughing when I told her, said Brenda had basically gift-wrapped us a winning case for criminal trespassing. While I'm documenting everything, I run into Sarah, one of the homeowners, a young mom, stroller in tow, panic in her eyes when she realizes her dream home sits on stolen ground. Turns out, these families had sunk their life savings into those houses, trusting Brenda and her paperwork, never imagining they'd been caught up in a land heist. They weren't the enemy. They were victims, just like me. Brenda didn't just double down. She went nuclear, hired a private security team, started sending out threatening emails about me to my clients, trying to paint me as a dangerous squatter. My business tanked almost overnight. 3 contracts gone, 15 grand down the drain, because Brenda, in her infinite wisdom, documented every slanderous lie in writing. Cassandra's reply? Congratulations, you just won a slam-dunk civil suit for defamation. Then came the twist, the permit records. Turns out, Brenda hadn't just stolen land. She'd cut every corner in the book. No environmental survey, no electrical inspections, nothing. Every single house was a disaster waiting to happen. That's when Sarah let me in on another secret. Brenda was pocketing thousands in special assessments, running a racketeering scheme on top of everything else, and threatening anyone who dared ask questions. The more pressure I put on Brenda, the more dangerous things got. Her security goons tried to scare me off. Then, out of nowhere, her cousin, a paralegal who played lawyer on weekends, sent me a bogus restraining order. But the kicker? Chuck, the security chief, called to warn me Brenda was setting me up for criminal trespassing charges with doctored photos and witnesses. He'd had enough of her games, hadn't been paid in weeks, and smelled trouble. At this point, the FBI got wind of the whole circus. Agent Martinez, all business, explained Brenda wasn't just running one scam but three, across multiple counties. Her brother-in-law clerk had forged dozens of tax records, and together they'd swindled hundreds of families out of millions. Suddenly, I wasn't just fighting for my 47 acres. I was the key to unraveling a criminal network. We made a plan. I'd wear a wire, play the beaten-down, desperate victim, and get Brenda talking about her operation. Meanwhile, Sarah and her husband David started tracing where all the HOA money had gone. Turns out, it was getting funneled through offshore accounts, classic money laundering style. I can still hear Cassandra, my lawyer, laughing when we realized Brenda had even built her own McMansion right on top of the most valuable mineral deposit on the land. I walked into Brenda's house playing the role of a broken man, and she couldn't resist showing off, boasted about bribing officials, faking documents, even how easy it was to target grieving families. Then, cold as ice, she let slip that accidents happen to people who don't quit, talked about missing persons like she was discussing the weather. That's the kind of moment where your blood runs cold, but you don't flinch, because now you know you've got her. The FBI played the tape, and you could hear every confession, every threat, enough to send a shiver down anyone's spine. But Brenda wasn't done. Next thing I know, David gets abducted by men pretending to be cops. Marcus, the journalist helping expose the scam, nearly gets killed when someone firebombs his office. The real gut punch, though, was finding my granddad's grave desecrated, headstone shattered, casket pried open, with a note saying, "Even the dead can't help you now." That's the kind of violation that bypasses rage and goes straight to the soul. But here's where things snapped into focus. The FBI staged a fake town hall. Every resident packed into folding chairs, Brenda strutting in with her goons, thinking she'd spin the story one last time. Only, the agents had already arrested her security, and the moment Agent Martinez flashed her badge, you could feel justice descend like a Montana thunderstorm. David walked in, free and defiant. Sarah and their little girl rushed to his side, and the room erupted. Brenda cracked. She confessed everything, right there on a dozen cell phone cameras, screaming that the system was corrupt and she just wanted her share. Her meltdown was the finale everyone wanted. Her brother-in-law, and the rest of their crew hauled off in cuffs, their assets frozen, their empire dismantled piece by piece. Even the victims across Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho got restitution. Ranches returned, farms restored, retirement funds paid back with interest. 6 months later, I built a cabin where Grandpa's house used to stand. The land, my land, became the Whitefish Community Land Trust. Every family got a legitimate title, affordable payments, and a stake in a real, honest community. Brenda got 25 years in federal prison. Her brother-in-law got 20. The scholarship fund we started trains local kids in the trades, electricians, plumbers, builders. Sarah runs a consulting business exposing HOA fraud. The place where David was held captive is now a wilderness camp for at-risk youth. Every summer, we hold the Henry Mitchell Festival, 3 days of music, food, and storytelling. My granddad's new headstone says he believed land should serve families, not criminals. Looking around, seeing neighbors tending gardens and kids playing in yards that used to be ground zero for fraud, I finally get what Grandpa meant about land being worth more than gold, if you fight to keep it honest. So, here's my challenge. If you've tangled with an HOA or seen injustice in your neighborhood, drop your story in the comments. Speak up, because you never know who needs to hear it or who you might help. Hit that like, subscribe if you want more real stories about fighting back and winning, and remember, sometimes, the best revenge is just making sure the truth gets heard.